You're listening to Masonry Principles, your guide to building better buildings, with hosts Amanda Bedian and Phil Leden. Thanks for listening to Masonry Principles. Today we've got Dawn Rogers. She is the Executive Director at the Arizona Masonry Council. Dawn, where are you based out of?
Our office is based in Chandler, Arizona, but if you know Arizona, Metro Phoenix area is pretty large and pretty close to each other. So we're pretty much in Metro Phoenix area.
Okay, great. I've only been to Phoenix once, but it is very, very big compared to what I thought it was. Now, do you cover the entire state as the Masonry Council?
We do, absolutely. We have our apprenticeship program we have in Tucson, which is Southern Arizona. And then we do a lot of events working to start a Northern Arizona apprenticeship program also. But yes, we from one border to the next, we cover the whole state of Arizona.
Awesome. And how long have you been with the Masonry Council now?
Actually have made full circle. So I started my career 23 years ago at the Arizona Masonry Guild. Right out of college, I started here as the marketing director, and I worked for the Guild for probably 7, 8 years. And then I have made the full circle and I have been back to the Arizona Masonry Council, which actually consists of the Arizona Masonry Guild and the Mason Contractors Association. We just recently dissolved those two and made one group. So we're one voice in the state. And I have now been here for a little over a year and a half.
Awesome. Now, are you contractor supported or producer supported or both?
We are both now. Now that we dissolved the two groups into one, we used to have the producer chapter was the guild and the marketing and producer. And then the Mason Contractors Group was our apprenticeship program and contractor training. And just last May, we have dissolved those two and we are officially all one.
Oh, fantastic. And you've got some really great things going on in Arizona. And I know Phil and I wanted to discuss the statewide checkoff program. Or do you call it a checkoff program when it's just statewide?
We do. We actually do. We do refer to it as the checkoff.
So you've got that going. How long has it been going on in Arizona?
It has now been in play since 2018. Actually, what it is every block sold in the state, the council will receive 2 cents. However, it's a voluntary program. And so only if a producer is going to be part of the checkoff, they can be a member of the council. If they do not want to be part of the checkoff, they can't be a participating member of the council.
So how many of them do that? I mean, as an order of magnitude, I mean, is it a lot of your producers?
It is, yes. So we have, in the state of Arizona, we only have 9 block producers, and 7 of those 9 are actually part of our checkoff program.
And I think from an order of magnitudes, I mean, me being from Michigan, Amanda in the New York region, I mean, we see just an absolute ton of wood construction and things like that up here. I mean, it's my understanding in Arizona, there's a lot of masonry. Is that right?
That's correct. And a lot of it, we have a lot of site walls. We have that market. You won't see any of the residential homes will not have anything but a block fence around it. It's probably one of our biggest. Commercial side, we're strong still, but the tilt market is pretty big here in Arizona. So that's one of the things we're combating as part of this. So we're constantly out there reminding people we can go a lot taller than they actually believe with masonry. So we do use a lot of block.
Okay, yeah, residentially, I mean, I think in the Midwest and Northeast part of the country, I mean, we don't see a lot of masonry being used residentially, so that's definitely something hopefully we can capitalize on moving forward, with some of what you all do down there. In terms of your checkout program, though, so 7 out of 9 producers have participated in that and the guild 2018. So, I mean, we're sitting here 2021. These things take kind of time to get up and going. I mean, 3 years in, are you seeing things change? What has it affected, I guess?
Absolutely. You're 100% correct on that. We finally are seeing it, right? So it takes some time to get it up and going. And now, just this year, we really have been seeing the monies come forward. we have 4 different pillars that we put the funds toward. And so now we're able to concentrate where they're actually going to be going. So really this year and moving forward is really where we've been able to see the checkoff make sense now. And so that almost 3 years was really tough because everybody's paying it and they don't see anything. So I got to say that it was a struggle at first, and it was a struggle in the last 3 years trying to remind people, just wait, it's going to pay off in the end. And so now is where, as I think we have talked about this before, people want to see where their money's going, always, right? And how is this benefiting me? I purchased a pallet of block and I paid so much toward this. Where is that actually going, and what does that do for me? So we're finally coming forward with that, which is exciting now. So now it's time, we're making some things happen.
What are the four pillars that you mentioned? So, I mean, is that a means of investing, for different markets, or what do those represent?
So our pillars, we have workforce development. That covers our apprenticeship program as well as our training for our contractors. So not just the contractors, our producers as well. We offer many different training programs on a monthly and quarterly basis. And for all of our members, it's free. Couple of the items. So we'll have a scheduling program. We'll have Mackie Bounds out here to do a scheduling program. We'll do OSHA 10 and OSHA 30 classes. And if you guys are familiar with that, those aren't cheap usually. But for our members, we're offering those for free. They'll all be certified and have their cards after it.
Wow.
And our newest program, Machine Operators, we are working with a local university as well as Besser and Columbia Machines. And we are working with the producers to actually put together down the road an actual certified apprenticeship program for machine operators so that our block producers have somebody that's trained and skilled and ready to take on their block producing machines. It's a very large bucket, that workforce development, of course. Our next one, we have building codes and standards and advocacy. This one, I think it's more near and dear to you, Phil, probably. We have 2 or 3 different consultants that we work with on a continuing basis, and we are always supporting them at any of the code councils, any of the committees. Obviously, TMS, we're very active. Max, we're active. We also support Western States Clay Products Association, of course, NCMA and MCAA, and we make sure the right people are at these meetings and on the right committees. And as a council, we pay for our people to be there and try to make some headway. I think the hardest part, I think what we understand the most is it's tough to make changes on the local level. So that's why we're constantly looking at how do we get changes at a national level. And to me, I think the national checkoff is what speaks to that for me mostly. But right now, we're kind of participating with that area. So in all the codes and standards, we also, our technical committee, we do job site inspections. And so we will go out and inspect anything that's going on. We're there to answer questions of architects, structural engineers, general contractors, and that's kind of our outreach on the technical side. And then, of course, it kind of leads into our education and promotion pillar. And that one, that's us going out doing more, I guess you could say some of the lunch and learns, but also getting our name in front of people, understanding why they should be building with masonry. It has the marketing end. We've just brought on a marketing team. We're going to be doing some new videos on benefits of masonry. We're trying to capitalize on some of the cost comparisons. I know NCMA has been working, trying to figure out how do we make use of some of these. I think multifamily was the big one. And of course, always just the benefits of masonry. So we're working with some architects, local architects actually, to kind of build a book is what we're looking at. And so this is going to be facilitated by our architect community. And they are going to be working with our local universities to start putting the cost comparison similar to what Pennsylvania had done. And I think we have that building site that we've seen, but a little more broader. It's not looking at one market only. It's going to be looking at wall sections and comparing them to the other systems that are out there, but also saying, okay, if you do this much square footage, this is the benefit, and kind of walk through the different elements of what masonry can do. And so that's our education and promotion group. It falls into that. And we also have our big event we do. It's called Excellence in Masonry Architectural Awards Banquet. And this, of course, this is the highlight to highlight all these amazing, beautiful projects that our architects, local architects do. And we do this every year. And of course, last year, because of COVID, we had to cancel 2020. But instead of just canceling it, we're actually doing a double duo, if I can say that. This year on September 24th, we're going to highlight all these projects, but we're going to have 2020 and 2021 awards. So that's one of our big ones to get the word out. And then our fourth and final pillar is our lobbying. And so we do have a lobbying firm that works with us. We have on retainer. And so we're constantly seeing what's going on in the state as well as a national level. And so we have a legislative committee and we work to figure out, okay, what battles do we take on this year? What should we be paying attention to a little bit more? And it's not only on the codes and standards side, but of course, that's a big part of it in our lobbying group, but also some of the things that the contractors are fighting in the field. And we're a right to work state, and we've had a lot of union groups try to come in and change a lot of laws. So that's kind of been one of those fights that we've had lately. It's always been interesting, but we do have somebody that's constantly there with the legislature and keeps us posted, lets us know, okay, hey, we need to go talk to these guys. And we have a great group that really gets excited to go and talk down at the legislature. We do it 2 or 3 times in a year. We'll go and support and have conversations of what we want to have support. And those are our 4 pillars.
So as far as like dollars and cents to those, I mean, so you collect your 2 cents per block. Who decides where that money goes? I'm assuming there has to be some sort of transparency. Is there a board? Who comprises the board? I guess who ultimately decides where that funding goes?
So we have the board of directors, and then of course we have an executive committee. And the board of directors is made up of all the block producers, and whatever number of block producers are on the board, we equal that amount for contractor members. So I have 7 block producers. We also have 7 contractor members that get voted in. And then we also have a third at-large member, which is one of our cement manufacturers. So we have 3 cement manufacturer members, and they get voted in as our 15th member. So right now we have a board of 15 people. And at the first of every year, we go through and do a budget. And because we just really started getting ramped up and moving forward with all of this, there's a lot of times that we go to the board directly because we have new things we want to add and see if it fits. We did a strategic plan, like I'm sure most people do. We did do a strategic plan at the end of last year so that we have the buckets, what it looks like. And so everything has to fall in within these buckets and make sense, of course. And so that's how the funding goes. And at each board meeting, they'll see where the budget is, what percentage we're using, and we kind of move forward with that.
Okay, got it. So yeah, I mean the 4 pillars. It seems like those line up kind of with what the early on discussions have been with the nationwide CME checkoff program. And from a rate of return, I mean, I know you said year 3, these things kind of take time to get going. I mean, was there hesitation for block producers? I mean, we're not, I think collectively we're not the most patient group of people, in our industry. It's how did you, I guess, navigate that or handle that?
Well, thankfully, I wasn't here when it all came through because it sounds like it got pretty hairy. And I think NCMA can probably tell some horror stories too, but because of the time that was taking for NCMA, Arizona saw Florida. We know Florida has a checkoff program, and our group basically worked with Florida once they got theirs through, and their lessons learned told us what not to do and what to do. And we kind of built from there. The producers, so what's interesting is Florida, they're structured a lot differently than us because of the lessons learned. And ours being voluntary, our producers would not sign any forms. We have no documentation of forms. The biggest thing is we have a third party entity that requests the block sold, and they collect the monies, and we will only see the bulk of it. So we don't have the detailed information. Of course, that was one of the key elements. And I gotta say, having the contractors have a voice in this was a big deal as well. And so I think that's been giving a heartburn to my contractors here, which is interesting, and my block producers for the national, because they're not working hand in hand, the contractors and producers, because really they're all paying this, right? I mean, the contractors are seeing that 2 cents, they're paying for that 2 cents. It's the block producers that cut the check, but everybody's playing the game. So they're all in there together, so they all want to have a say, right? And they have different needs, but at the same time, I think everybody's has the same interest. We all want more masonry in the industry, and we all want to make sure we're doing it right. There was some issues to start, and I have to say, we actually we had to bring the attorney in because we had some questions that had arisen earlier this year, and I said, well, let's have that conversation because we need to keep the conversation going. We can't have sideline conversations. And I think that will hurt more than anything if people start questioning stuff, but don't do it as a whole. So it's being very transparent. I think, Phil, you said that at the get go. The transparency is huge. And it's going to be, we actually put a producer committee together so that they have their say. And we've always had a contractor committee together so that they have their say. And when they come together, we all know we're on the same page.
Yeah, not a party till a lawyer gets involved.
Right.
Uh, as far as, I mean, where this cost goes, I mean, yeah, the producers are ultimately the ones paying it, but I mean, that gets factored into the contractor. How has it affected the cost of masonry? I mean, have you seen, I know you'd spoken about square foot costs and kind of compiling those numbers. Have you seen it affect the cost of masonry projects or not so much?
No, not so much. It's surprising. Cost of everything is crazy right now, but masonry, we're pretty steady. And you guys probably see the same thing. We may be a totally different world, but pretty steady. We don't fluctuate as bad as like what you see the steel and lumber. So this has not had an effect at all on the pricing of projects or anything. The biggest thing is our manpower right now. And that's one of the areas that we're investing in with the checkoff, trying to figure out the best ways to get people, right? Get the people that want to work and want to work in our industry and have this as a career. So hasn't affected costs. It's the contractor, but the end user has not, we've never, I shouldn't say never, but I have not heard of any end users questioning the prices of it.
Okay. Yeah, I think workforce development is something, I mean, all 50 states struggle with. And so I'm sure, Arizona is no different than anyone else. I mean, you'd said, you're a right to work state. So do you have issues with union versus non-union in Arizona? And I guess how do you navigate those?
No, we really don't. Like I said, there's been a couple, the unions have come in and tried to do a couple bills recently for labor negotiations. Here in the masonry industry, there is only one mason contractor in the state of Arizona. And obviously, you can only imagine what that apprenticeship program looks like, right? If they're it. So, no, we are definitely not a big union town and not much of a battle there at all.
Hmm. Okay. As far as coming up with square foot costs, because that's something we've done through MIM as well. And I mean, we basically surveyed all of our contractors, producers, and came up with a list of what our square foot prices are. And I mean, with 2021, you touched on it with fluctuations with other building materials. What we found is, we're significantly more cost effective than steel, wood, even concrete right now. Is that what you expect to find in the Arizona markets as well?
Absolutely. We're out talking to the general contractors right now, and they agree 100%. They're like, you're giving every industry, everyone a run for the money for sure. And lead times, even. I mean, we're all. I think we talked a little bit about this, but the lead times for materials, yes, we're out, but we're nowhere near what the steel joists are or the wood packages coming into these projects. So every time a general contractor or owner will come to me and say, "Hey, well, what about these 16-week for my block?" And then I always turn around and ask, "So what's your steel joist package? How long is that taking you? Or your wood package?" And they stop and think about it and they go, "Okay, yeah, you're right in line. You're actually earlier than any of the others." So, which is nice to hear, right? There's one thing that I hate that we have this delay, but like you said, like with workforce, same thing with materials right now. Unfortunately, it's where we're at, right? But I think, I guess the best part about it is that we look better all around. So the cost, we have materials a little bit sooner than the others, so it makes it look good.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I mean, is that what you're seeing in New York as well, Amanda, with your markets?
Yeah, so, I mean, everything we're just pushing along like everybody else, trying to find our niche and take over little by little, but in regards to the checkoff, obviously, that's on a national side, but we're investing, I don't wanna get too far off topic, a lot of money into marketing and, just bringing more awareness to end users and owners of the building, so hoping with those investments, there'll be a little bit better return than more traditional things that we've been doing.
So I have a question for you too, because it's very cyclical. Our industry, the construction industry as a whole, is very cyclical. And one of the conversations we're having right now is I have some people that are looking at the now and not down the line. So, like you said, Amanda, your marketing. I have the one saying, we don't need marketing. We've talked to enough architects, we've talked to enough engineers. We need manpower. We need to make this happen. And so let's fast forward 5 more years. And when the market's slowing down, right? Because it's very cyclical, we're coming right back to the okay, you need to go talk to more engineers. You got to go talk to the architects. We need more work, right? So I'm curious between your guys' organizations how you keep that flow and make it understood, right? I mean, that's to me one of the biggest things is to make sure everybody gets it. I mean, as a contractor, your day to day, you got to look forward to, but not always can you because you're going so crazy, right?
I mean, on behalf of New York, I'll say my board is really great with understanding, like, we always discuss like what came first, the chicken or the egg when it comes to design or workforce development. And it's like we need both and to put equal attention onto both of them. I mean, there's some quarters where I'm just focusing on workforce development, but I'll still maintain what I've done in the design, the AEC community, but then it flips. So 5 years into this role, I still don't know what the answer is. I just know we need to make some changes because if you don't have the workforce to design it, you're in trouble, but if they're not designing it, then you don't have the workforce. Like you said, we're just gonna be constantly doing that cycle, but we in New York just need to see more masonry altogether. I know Phil touched on it in our meeting that we had, like, even just going over the low-hanging fruit in design and, like, things that we should have, and we're not on the planning board for that. It's like, we gotta just take back a little bit more of the pie.
Right.
So what we do is, like I said, we've got a pretty aggressive marketing plan going on right now. We're just in the strategy side of things, but hopefully maybe next time we chat, I can update everybody to see what we invested and how it went because we got to make some changes.
Yeah, in Michigan, I mean, our board is comprised of kind of everyone throughout the community. So we do have associate members, which could be architects or engineers or CMs, but contractors are our largest contributors financially. So a lot of what we do is helping contractors out, whether it's workforce development. A lot of what we do is helping with RFIs on projects. I think kind of chicken or egg type thing. We're seeing a lot of really, really bad designs, unfortunately, uh, whether it's structurally or architecturally, things that just don't make sense and are really adding cost to the project. And so, I mean, not only does it hurt that one particular project or that one particular contractor, but I mean, if the owner has to stomach all these change orders and costs associated with masonry, I mean, it doesn't leave them with the best opinion of masonry. And so, I mean, we focus very, very heavily on educating architects and engineers. We probably get about 70 technical calls a month on projects that I deal with. We are very involved in the universities, trying to educate architects and engineers. Yet, I think to like Amanda's point, I mean, you look at Dollar Generals, gas stations, buildings that always have been masonry, and they're pre-engineered now. We just helped on a wastewater treatment building a couple weeks ago where a local community wanted to make it out of steel, and it's like it had chlorine in it. And I mean, even farmers know better than that, and somehow we need to retake what was ours, because I think we got to a comfort level where all gas stations are blocked. So yeah, we're not going to focus on that. Well, now they're not, and how do we get that back? And so we do focus heavily on architects and engineers and kind of taking back. what I believe to be ours. But at the same time, we don't by any means neglect our contractor members because I mean, you can design whatever you want, but if you don't have someone to build it, it's not really worth anything. So I mean, it's kind of a balancing act, I think. But yeah, if we focus only on one and neglect the others, I mean, it's a very short term mindset and it might solve a problem today, but it creates an avalanche of problems in the future.
I agree. Well, it's good to hear we're all kind of, no matter what our markets look like, we're all in the same position. So at least we're not alone, right? That's the key.
No, we're in it together.
We are in it together, which is, and I guess, so what's interesting is because we have our local checkoff, we haven't been pushing the national checkoff a ton. And I think there's been two different reasonings behind it. The first one is they were concerned, of course, the bureaucracy. That's always number one. And they don't think they'd see the money on a local level. And the other one is they want to know what it's for, but for marketing purposes, it looked like it was for marketing, but marketing, what they are going to do nationally won't help us. I'm saying we as the organization, like all my members, but also having a contractor say in it. So it's been interesting that my group kind of has been at just neutral and they've asked me to stand neutral on it. But what I've constantly said is this national checkoff could do so good, especially for these mom and pop smaller groups, producer groups, and that's of my 9 in the state of Arizona, only 2 are national companies and the other 7 are mom and pop family owned producers. And so that's to me, that's who's going to benefit. And I think the same as our local checkoff, just as much. But it's been interesting to hear that they're not in huge support of it here in Arizona, which I was surprised.
So I guess my concern for Arizona or Florida, because I talked to a lot of people in Florida as well, and they have
Mhm.
very successful state-run checkoff program. But if I'm the softwood lumber industry, right, I have all these millions of dollars, do I want to fight all 50 states or do I want to fight 2 states? If the
Right.
national checkoff program does not pass, I'm going to spend all my money marketing in Arizona and Florida because those are the only 2 places I need to win. If the national checkoff passes, now they need to fight everywhere because we're going to have dollars all over the US. I definitely understand wanting to keep what's yours. Again, it's kind of that short-sighted versus long-sighted mentality. And I mean, if it does not pass nationally, they're only going to have to market in Arizona and Florida. And so, I mean, the dollars per state would be exponentially greater. And so I think it would lead to more softwood lumber, it'd lead to more precast concrete, tilt up, all those things in Arizona and Florida. And so, I mean, I definitely understand and appreciate what your members are saying. But I do think that with a national program, it would benefit Florida and Arizona as well as the other 48 states.
And as far as your checkoff in Arizona, is it like, is there an expiration date of how long it goes, or is it just gonna go on until the money runs out?
It is there is no expiration date to our program. Once again, it's voluntary. We almost lost one of our producers because they were questioning it at a higher level,
Mhm.
and we had some contractors call them up and tell them what it's doing for our industry. So they stuck with us, but it's continued conversation that we have to keep going and having this. And I mean, I know at the national level to have it, I think it will only make us a little bit stronger with the national one. And I think codes and standards, to me, we can't do much at a local level compared to what we could do with this national checkoff. But no expiration. We can just go until all the producers decides they don't want to go anymore.
Right.
So knock on wood, it just goes and goes so that we can make something happen, even when we have a downturn, because the monies will slow down, obviously, but at least we'll have something there that we can lean on and strengthen until the next time we're up and doing well again.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and I am curious to see what we do on the national side. And Phil, can you just give us, is there a little update as far as the last conversation we had of where we are with the national campaign for the checkoff?
Unfortunately not. So we do get weekly updates, but it still is in the Department of Commerce's hands, and so we're not sure yet when the vote will occur. Are still in the registration period, and it looks like a majority of producers have registered to vote. In Michigan, I think we're looking really well as in other areas of the country. We don't know when that vote will happen.
It's a federal thing.
It's the ultimate waiting game. Yeah, waiting on the government.
That's right.
So on that note, I mean, Don, I really appreciate your time today. I think what you guys have going on in Arizona is working out great. There I know in Florida as well, and I think if nationally it does pass, I think we'll be in really good shape. But I appreciate you providing our listeners kind of with a little bit of insight into where those dollars would be spent. And I think Amanda and I have been talking, and obviously through checkoff, and I think we all kind of know where the money needs to get spent. It's just getting things passed and getting us to that finish line. So we really appreciate your time today. And to all of our listeners, we appreciate you tuning in. And we'll close out this episode of Masonry Principles.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Masonry Principles. To continue the conversation, be sure to reach out to us by visiting masonryprinciples.com.